Okay. Good morning, everyone. Once again, it is Professor Salbures and Professor Nicolau coming to you for the G.O.L.E Week 4 topic, which is going to relate to problem solving the Greek way versus the contemporary crisis approach to a situation. Hi, Anna, how are you?
Hello from Athens. I'm fine. How are you?
Very good, very good. So basically, just for the students to keep up, today is focusing on the modules that have to do with social justice. We're continuing discussion on culture, identity, and communication, right? And some of the terms that relate to this unit are from previous discussions about subjective or objective, particular and universal principles and perspectives, and what is the concept of truth and goodness, okay? So we're moving consistently towards this concept of how to express ourselves. However, at the same time, we're connecting it to sociological principles and philosophical principles on the good and the just and etc. All right. So Anna, let's start out with the concept of really problem solving the Greek way and having that ability to be resilient in our problem solving skills. What do you think?
Thank you, Chris. Well, Greece differs in many ways from other Western countries. It is considered to be a Western country, but it actually belongs to a crossroad. Okay, it's somewhere between East and West. It has been an ancient civilization, therefore its roots go very deep in the past. Therefore, there has been a cultural, economic exchange with the countries of the Middle East, and of course, it's been through many things in history. So the country, the Greek state, was created back in the 19th century, early 19th century. So it's a very new state compared to other states. And it missed some of the great changes that happened in the West, like the Enlightenment, for example, or the Renaissance period, okay, that were very fundamental for the creation of the modern nation states in Europe and North America. So Greece, as I said earlier, has many influences from the East, and has developed a different kind of state compared to the Western societies. So if I very briefly can make a comparison, the Western model is basically relies on what we call democratic governance and rule of law, protection of human rights, the separation of powers. That means the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. Civil liberties, of course, market economy, the creation of a welfare state, especially in Europe. Western societies tend to encourage pluralism and the existence of multiple political parties, interest groups, and civil society organizations. They're secular countries, and they are committed to international cooperation. The Western type of state is based on bureaucracy, rationalization, and bureaucracy. Okay. Now, the Greek state is a very different model. Yes, it is supposed to have democratic governors and the rule of law and the separation of powers. And of course, it follows, let's say, its own type of market economy. Okay, I would never say that we are a free market economy in the sense that we're talking about, for example, the United States, because there is a lot of intervention by the state, and not for the good, of course, for the good of people, for the welfare of the citizens. We have a very weak welfare state, like the one that, like the ones similar to the Italian welfare state or the Spanish welfare state. The Mediterranean welfare state is very, very weak compared to the welfare state system we see in the north. A good exception could be France, which I consider a more Mediterranean country. So that means that the Greek people have to deal with many things simultaneously. Historically, they have to deal with, for example, state intervention in their lives. They have to deal with the lack of a welfare state. That's why the institution of family is very, very strong in the Mediterranean countries. Okay, apart from the cultural elements and characteristics, the Mediterranean family becomes very, very important because it replaces the non-existent welfare state. Okay, that's why we stay longer with our families. We have compared, for example, to young adults in America or Great Britain or other places. We all of our time, all of our life, we tend to have the support of our families, and we give back to our parents, and this is how it works. Okay, so the family ties are very, very strong in Greece, and not necessarily because we love each other very much, but because we need each other very much. So, taking all in mind, the Greek people need to develop many different coping skills to deal with their everyday life. Okay, the setbacks they face, for example, the lack of welfare state, the lack of protection, the interventions by the government. So we need to have, before we act, have backup plans. And I wouldn't say one backup plan, maybe 2 or 3 backup plans, right, to deal with the problems. We have become very flexible over the years. I mean, when there's something we need to change, we do this very, very quickly, okay, because we're accustomed to do that. Okay, we're not smarter, but we have to deal with things that needs to think on our feet. We all have to need on our feet, think on our feet most of the times. Okay, so when there comes a problem, we are very quick figuring out a solution. Okay, so this is the Greek way of problem solving. So what's your take on that, Chris?
So I agree with you that the Greek people are very resilient, and we've been trained for generations and generations from ancient times, and it's a type of EQ, emotional intelligence. So it's not so much that we know more than another culture how to do something, or that we have more experience. It's just we have the emotional flexibility, as you said it, to be able to shift from one thing to another because we've seen it, we've witnessed it in the past generation, and they've seen it in the past generation, going back to, even the Trojan horse story, or the Gordian knot story, or, all of these examples that we have throughout our own history as a people. I always have considered Greece to be part of the Eastern civilizations because it is an ancient culture. And for me, the ancient civilizations, the root of all ancient civilization is in the East. And you see more similarity between the Eastern cultures and Greece than you do see in between Greece and the other traditionally known Western cultures. And I feel you mentioned something I found was very interesting, that Greece was absent from the Renaissance and Enlightenment. However, it was one of the most influential. The works of ancient Greece were one of the most influential. They influenced all of Shakespeare's work. They influenced all of these other literary figures' works. This idea of romance, this idea of democracy, this idea of fraternity, all of these concepts come back and forth in literature. The work of Aristotle was fully resurrected by St. Thomas Aquinas, which I just finished mentioning in my last class. And it wouldn't have happened before the Enlightenment period, because the Dark Ages, they were trying to squish all of the ancient concepts down in favor of one ideology. And since we know now in contemporary culture that we have such a diverse and robust history, you can't squish everything down and come up with just one right answer for everyone. There isn't one right answer for everyone. And so it's so important to be resilient and to acknowledge diversity and to acknowledge the fact that there's more than one way to do something, and that it can still be the right way, the correct way. My yaya would tell me always, oh, this is the correct way. Okay, but it was her correct way versus another person's correct way, and both could be correct. You know, the points that we see that there are maybe some gaps is when someone from a very modern culture comes and sees a tradition from an ancient culture and considers it backwards, and that happens sometimes. So there's maybe a gap between the problem solving. But I find that more and more it's the communities that have the EQ and the resilience to combat stressful situation and challenges who survive in the end. Especially now, we've just come out of the crisis of the pandemic. We've come out of so many economic crises. We've come out with so many sociological crises of trying to identify what's right in the world, identify different classifications and things like this. And people in modern society tend to get very overwhelmed with it. And it's clear to see why. It's because there's so many choices, so many failures, so many things around us that, we're not sure with all of this. As you said earlier, actually, before we started the recording, we get flooded with so much information now because of media, but also because of the people around us, because the timing, because we're struggling to become a global society. And so we have this idea of functioning fully in crisis mode 100% of the time, and a person can't function like this. We face burnout if we're fully in crisis mode. So the Greek way is something that Anna and I will both recommend, I think, because you have the plan A, the plan B, the plan C, and there are small changes, small shifts from the plan, but the goal is still the same. And so you've reached your goal successfully, even though it might not be in the original way that you intended. What do you think, Anna? Should we add? Do you have something to add for this one?
No, I just simply agree. I didn't want to mention it earlier. I just stuck on the sociological, let's say, dimension. But you correctly mentioned that, of course, what we call today Western civilization not only has its roots in the East, in the Eastern world, but also Greek philosophy, ancient Greek philosophy, and ancient Greek civilization influenced the development of the Western civilization. And that is very, very important. And also the Byzantine Empire influenced, for example, the Western civilization. We don't talk much about it, but for example, the Renaissance is also related to the Byzantine Empire and how the Italian people, the Venetians, or the people from Genova used to travel, and the merchants in the East, in Byzantium, which was really one of the greatest empires that lasted almost 1,000 years, right? Okay, and it was always the border. It was the border between the East and the West. It's actually it was a border between the European people and the Asian people. So Asian tribes that, at that time, they were warriors and they just wanted to occupy new territories, they would always find a stop in the Byzantine Empire, okay? So, like, for example, look what happened when Byzantium fell. The Ottomans almost got in in the capital of Austria, right? Okay, they were fighting in Austria, Central Europe, right? So it was a very, very historically, we haven't done justice, especially in the West, Western historiography has not just done justice to Byzantium, because Byzantium played a very important role along with the Arabs. I have to say that the Arabs, uh, on maintaining, on saving the ancient writings, okay? And it is very, very important to mention that, because sometimes we look at Arab people and we think that they are backwards or something like that. The Arabs played a very, very important role in translating and maintaining and saving Greek ancient documents. And through Spain, these ideas traveled into Europe, the Aristotle's, for example, ideas, okay, and through Byzantium. So we have to give credit to these civilizations. So no, when we talk about West, it's something very, very recent in mind, something we of course we appreciate, obviously, but um, the roots are in the ancient past, and we don't need to forget that. Okay. So I find this very, very important. Now, to tell you just for the fun of it, yes, when I drink the Greek coffee in Turkey, feel like I'm home, compared, for example, being in London. Okay.
It's true. It's true. Actually, a member of the class was explaining, because he's actually from Greece, he was explaining to the rest of the class what is frappe. And so everybody's like, oh, so the concept frappuccino that they have now in every coffee shop that you go everywhere. And so he goes, yeah, it's the frappe. It's a Greek thing. And so
Okay.
on top of it, I added it's from Nescafe, because people were poor. They needed this thing. The soldiers and stuff needed some instant coffee. And so it's the food of the poor. But you go to a coffee shop now and it's $14 sometimes. It's the idea, the value of something that's existed for so long.
I wanna tell you just a funny story. It relates to our topic
Okay.
very clearly. Everybody knows espresso coffee, the Italian coffee,
Yeah.
espresso. Okay, so it is the hot coffee. In Greece, we have, for the summer, because the summers are very hot here, we have a variation which we call it freddo. It's the same espresso coffee, but we add ice in that, so it becomes cold. So when we traveled to Italy, they didn't serve freddo. They only served espresso. So I'm in the hotel and said, okay, please make an espresso and put some ice cubes in there. They looked at me, the Italians, they looked at me, very, very strange. And then I had my freddo. This is the Greek mentality. Okay, there is a problem. Here is the solution.
Yeah.
What is made of? It's made of ice. So if we put some ice cubes, okay,
Yes.
we will make a freddo.
But that's the thing, and there were some moments, not to go into too much detail, but there were some moments that you and I even experienced where, to prepare for the G.O.L.E, and we had to quickly think of the solution. There was quickly a problem that came up that was unexpected, and quickly we came up with the solution. And that's just how it is, that's just how it is. You have, of course, there are some factors to it, like you and I both are very experienced teachers, and so because of this, we have the ideas come a little bit more quickly. The conversations flow much more easily. If we were both new teachers, for example, perhaps there would be some different challenge, but we would have only our training and not really the experience. But here we have the training, the experience, we know the content, we know what technology is available. And so these things all kind of flow together. So there's one point about it that I want to make sure that our students know, which is specifically students maybe get overwhelmed when something is new to them, and they get anxious about it. But it's the job of the student to learn still, because we're all learning still, right? So it's expected for students to take a little more time to develop a topic. It's expected for a student to need to research a little bit more or find out. But at the same time, the student might know something that we don't. For example, the way that the students use my students use different apps to prepare their videos, and you can see from the videos when they start their introduction, they're using different apps. Maybe some are using their phone, others are using their computer, others are using like the headsets, and some are not, and it's just based on their knowledge of things. There are ways that they think to do it that I would never think to do because I'm using the old-fashioned, the more traditional method, right? And it's very important then for us to keep, as we said in our previous podcast, active listening, and make sure we keep ourselves open to learning then, because that's really what active listening is. It's open learning, being open to what another person has to contribute to the conversation. And it doesn't matter the role, if the role is teacher, the role is student, or the role is a president or whatever. Everyone is here and has their unique contribution that they can make towards a situation, which is where resilience builds as a society, as a group. What do you think, Anna?
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you, and I want to say that I want to add that for us, Gole was a new uh, thing. We had to learn. We had to uh, discuss things from the very beginning. So to set up, for example, the Google Classroom and ask students to join. It just took a lot of time for us brainstorming, thinking which would be the best platform to use, because we're using different platforms anyway. And for me, it was very, very important that we had such a good communication with the whole Gola team, and of course, definitely with you. So we've been working on this project for many months now, so it just didn't appear like this. And what we're doing in the podcast is that we're doing what our students expect us we expect from students to do. Okay, just to discuss, feel at ease and discuss and talk and come up with ideas. Okay, and obviously we don't know everything, and I can reassure you that especially when technological problems appear in my classrooms, usually I ask for the first thing before I call tech support is to ask my students to help me, which usually works. Okay, oh, you have to press this button, you have to do this, and suddenly magically everything is solved. So I'm really happy.
It's true. Actually, in the classroom, we've had some challenges as well. But the first day of class, when I introduced everyone to the concept of Gole and I showed them the Google Classroom is here, they knew the Google Classroom already because they used it from high school, from the secondary school. They already knew what it was. They already were comfortable using it. So that made me feel more comfortable to use it because I saw how comfortable they were to use it. And so it added to the level of functionality in the classroom. Uh, and I think to some degree, it decreased also the level of anxiety of working with something strange because, it's not really xenophobia, but when something is strange to us and it's new to us, and already college is the new experience. So on top of college being the new experience, we're now exposing the students to this integrated classroom. So it could have been possibly very stressful, but introducing it through a familiar platform that they know helps reduce that problem. And then connecting them in peer groups also looks like it has helped to reduce that. And hopefully that will help the students build resilience within the classroom setting.
Mhm.
And once they learn that skill, they can use that in life as well.
Obviously,
Yes.
obviously, I agree.
Uh, so when do you think, let's talk a little bit more about when do you think a strategy, when do you think you can spot that the strategy plan A is not working? It's time to move to plan B.
I think there's nothing specific I can say. It depends. It relates to the goal.
Mm,
What goals you have, okay? What you want to achieve, and if this doesn't work, you find out that this doesn't work, you move to plan B, okay? or plan C if you have to, for example. Okay, that's how it works. It relates with your goals. That this is the moment where you decide whether this plan is effective, produce solutions or not, and then you move quickly to plan B. Okay, so I think it has to do with the flexibility we talked about
Mm.
earlier, like how flexible you are without spending time losing losing it and saying, oh, what am I supposed to do, and be stressed. It's just, just do that. Be flexible, change, go to the next plan. Okay,
Yes.
don't spend time on getting stressed about it. Okay.
So this by itself is a Greek concept, I find. Um, because here there's a lot of time that's dedicated to thinking about finding why we're stressed, why we're triggered, why, what's bothering us. But really, when something needs to be done, it gets done, you know? I remember the stories that my grandparents would tell me about World War II and surviving World War II and then immediately building a family. And when they built their family, they were still thinking with the crisis mentality of World War II, of saving, of rationing, of having these things. And I saw they would ration for themselves and give everything to their kids, right? And so their kids, my uncles and my mother, they learned to do the same thing. They would ration for themselves and then give everything to their kids. Um, and we're a big family. It's the big fat Greek family, very typical, Uh, it's the one thing that we didn't ration is measuring out how many people we're having. Just a big family. But the mentality is there. And so as you said something before, which is the family value and the necessity of that, the necessity comes from knowing there's a reassurance in knowing there are other people like me. There are other people like me. And if I want a reliable feedback from someone, I'm going to go to somebody who's going to give me an honest feedback, because that's the one thing you can count on your family to tell you, the honest. Even if it's very harsh, they will give you the honest feedback. Uh, the other thing is you trust them because they will tell you when they see something is right, and they'll tell you when they see something is wrong. The one thing that maybe is not part of the Greek uh, paradigm, right? When we're looking at successful versus unsuccessful attempts at something, we don't celebrate our success the way Western culture does.
No, no,
And our parents don't come and tell us, great job, and celebrate. They just tell you, okay, what's
no.
next? What's next?
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
that is true. That is true. In Greece, we don't celebrate success. I
right,
mean, okay, what's the next step? Okay,
right.
and go on. And yeah, that's something that I don't like this. To be honest, this is a very bad thing in the sense that there is a fine line between over exaggerating success, and there's also not to give some time to your children to celebrate what they have achieved. Okay,
Right.
that's very very important. um I think we should not over exaggerate, but we should say the good things, celebrate and recognize their efforts and things like that.
Yes. Yes. It's very important. And it's something that here I find it's misunderstood, right? So just because somebody tells you, oh, nice, what's next? Right? It's not to tell you we don't appreciate, it's not to say that you didn't do a great job or fabulous or something. But it's funny that uh people feel more the need now to have that celebration, to have that thing. The Greek way is really not to over celebrate the thing, just like we don't waste time, not waste, we don't spend time stressing, but we also don't spend time celebrating. We're busy strategizing for the next thing. What's the next thing? Because we already have the experience that if we sit down and try to relax, there's going to be 5 things piling up in front of us. So might as well just go to the next thing. Uh, resting, relaxing, finding the time to just stop is in general not part of our tradition professionally. And it should be. It's a shame because I see in the more modern European cultures, they have like siesta time, or they have the time where they're closed. We close. I know on Sunday, a lot of places just close, right? And so that's our opportunity to just leave everything and reboot for one day. And then Monday, we have to be ready for the universe to strike once more, right? So it's a little bit different than the model here. The model here at 5 o'clock, the workday has finished, you finish, that's it. Next morning, you have your thing, 9 o'clock in the morning, you're ready. From 9 o'clock to 5 p.m., you must be ready. And that's it. You have your break, everything has its precision, and that's it. It's very different. It's a very different mentality. The emphasis on failure here is so heavy compared to in Greece. In Greece, oh, you have a failure, it's okay. Keep moving. Keep moving. Keep moving. Don't sit down because you failed. What are you doing? You have work to do because you need to hit the success. Is your goal still a good goal? All right. Come on. Plan B is here. Plan C. Come on, let's go. All right. Find your resources, move along, right? Here, there's a lot of defeatist mentality. There's a lot of people who are cheering for you to fail. It is a stressful culture. Modern civilization has become much more stressful, because of this difference in mentality. So in class, I try to promote something different. I try to promote that Greek way that we're talking about of being resilient and really self-empowering, being ready to motivate yourself to function, because you can't always function and depend on the opinion of everyone else. Because maybe sometimes the other people are not correct, or sometimes you have a vision for something that's really advanced and they don't see it yet. But once you've set it in motion, then they see it and they can respond to it or approve of it or, accept it. So what do you think, Anna?
I think that I agree with you. I think it has to do with what you just described. It has to do with the American values. Okay, it has to do with the like, for example, success is an American value. Okay, among the many values that exist. Okay, so if you put a lot of emphasis on individualism, competition, success, okay, that stresses out people.
Money.
Obviously,
There's a lot of
okay.
emphasis on money and gain, like financial.
Emphasis on money, financial gain, and um, and I usually use an American book in statistics, and when I want to show them what a correlation is, there is the net worth of a person at the age of 40, and I say net worth of a person at the age of 40 is American. We will never see people as a net worth. Okay, this is, human beings are not a net worth. Okay, and but this is just an example in the book. I mean, we wouldn't even consider in Greek to say what would be your net worth at the age of 40 or 50 or 30 or whatever. Okay,
Right.
so it's materialism, a lot of materialistic values there, and which have been emphasized, which really stress people out. So if you do not succeed, for example, in the sense that okay, you gave your SAT scores and you didn't get in college, you're not a failure. You just can give it a try again, and this is what the English people do. They're not any smarter than the Americans, for example. Okay, so they will find ways. But again, I go back to the support of the family that exists here. Like, for example, if your child does not get into the public university, the parent will do whatever, the thing that you described earlier, the parent will do whatever to help the child to either go to a private college or go abroad. England, France, Germany, even the United States, sometimes it's very rare, but they will help as much as they can to so that the child receives a proper education. Okay, this is the thing, right? So yes, we don't have like, for example, a welfare state that we don't get loans in Greece
True.
to study. So the American students and the American people need a lot more support from the system. I don't know how much, but there are people in America that they don't embrace this. I mean, I'm talking about low middle class, working class people who who have internalized these values instead of saying,
Mm.
okay, where do I belong? In which class do I belong? Why should I behave like I am in the upper classes when I'm not? Why don't I want a welfare system in my in you know in my life? But again, I don't want to say much because I wouldn't do justice to the American culture that offers so many great things, and I wouldn't want to do that as an outsider. From this. So I just want to keep it there only.
Well, in the American society right now, one of the problems is that because of the way that primary and secondary education teach students only to achieve for one exam, they don't train them for life. They don't give them life skills, they give them examination skills. And some students are very conducive to that, and they have like very good scores on all their tests, but then they don't have EQ that we're talking about, this resilience ability. They just know how to function in a linear fashion to achieve goal A, right? Now, if goal A is not a crystal clear concept that can be then solved with some study and some test taking, they don't know what to do and they fall to a state of anxiety and crisis. And that's where one of the things. So when you ask an open-ended question like, how do you identify yourself? How are you choosing your life path and all this? That becomes too stressful for them, so it becomes a problem. It's very common. I don't remember having much choice until I came to college of what my direction was going to be. It was fixed for me. And then once I came to college and I was finishing college and I started law school. And after law school, I started law school and I said after one semester, I don't want this. This is not what I want. And I went back to my advisor, who was very close with my mother, right? And my mother would only approve of my tuition payment and everything if my advisor had spoken with her and they had agreed on this is what Chris should do. Okay, fine. So then I came to my advisor. I said, you need to tell me what to do. I don't like law school. And I remember he told me, yeah, I did not think you would like law school. And I told him, why? Why did you send me on that path? I'm, advanced program and this and that program and law school program. I said, why did you put me on that path? He goes, no, you were on that path. But I didn't see it for you. But I figured you would either figure out a way to get through this law school path and be successful, or you would figure out that it's not for you and you would come see me. So I said, okay, now I'm here. Please help me. Please help me now. I'm here. And he's the one who put me on the path for teaching philosophy, which was amazing. It was exactly clicking very easily. Everything, the path itself had, of course, its challenges. It's not 100% simple, but that was the plan that was for me. And I didn't even realize it until he had mentioned that this was like the fork in the road. And that was the moment for me to make my big choice. And I did, and it's been very rewarding. It doesn't amount to much financially. We won't talk about my net worth, right? However, in the Greek value system where you value your accomplishment and your spiritual fulfillment, your intellectual advancement, this has happened for me, right? So if someone asks me if I'm happy and fulfilled, sure, yes. Am I ever going to retire? No, because I still have to work so I can pay the rent and, all these things. But it's, it's a challenge. You have to choose what your value is going to be. Is it going to be the financial model? Is it going to be an obsession with net worth? I remember a student, former student, was turning 24 or 25. And he came running into the office and said, "Oh my goodness, I did it." And I said, "What did you do?" "My net worth is $1 million before the age of 25. And I said, "Okay." I didn't ask him, "How did you do this? How did you accomplish?" I saw he was so happy. And, that's what he wanted. So then I told him, "Bravo." And, what's next? That That's exactly what I told him. "Bravo, what's next? Like, now you have this, what's next?" And he looked at me because he thought, why am I not celebrating with him this thing? But for two reasons, I didn't celebrate. Not that I didn't celebrate, but I wasn't going to get up and make a parade, I don't understand the obsession with net worth and with finance and thing. If you have what you need financially in life, the rest of yourself needs development. And so you need to really honor that. And that's more the Socratic principles we were talking about earlier this semester. But I feel the stress and the crisis mode, we're creating it from ourselves, right? This generation is creating it for themselves. Our generation created it for themselves. And it needs to really dissipate. And really, the only way to do it is to build that resilience and not to insist on a material focus, to insist more on the fulfillment of the Aristotelian holistic principle, which is to look at spiritual values, intellectual, psychological values, social values, and physical attributes as well. That combination together is what gets a person.
I wanted to mention two things which I find very, very important. I have a student, he's French. He's in the master's program in psychology. So it's an online program. And he's from France, and he was based in the lovely island of Corfu. He lived there. And now he has moved to Florida in a village there. And I say, you must be very happy because you live first of all away from Athens or any big city. And you're so close to nature, and whatever you're doing, your work allows you to move from one place to another and stay there, which I find that I really appreciate that from anything else. And just uh, in life, to be able to live close to nature, for example. Okay, so the people, I mean the students, our students, both in Greece and in the US, they have to take some time to alone to think and make a hierarchy of the things they want to accomplish, not in the materialistic sense. I mean, but what do you want to live? Do you want to live in Paris and become a painter? Do that. Follow your dream. You don't have to stay and become some executive in a company. And think about the net worth. Think about what your soul is craving, which I find very fantastic. Do the things that you want to do. The other thing, because I want to say, which I think there is a huge difference between the Greek people in general and the Americans and the British, at least those groups, is I like the way Americans and British communicate. When you have a discussion, they have arguments, they talk, they something you don't see with the Greeks. The Greeks are not so argumentative. I mean, they don't use so much arguments when they have discussions. It's one of the bad things that we use our arguments to knock the other person down, to show how smart we are. Or in Greek we say "stini patora," which means how can you translate that in English? It's a jargon. It's a slang. So we pay more attention to come out of an argument as the winners, for example, than just really have a nice conversation. So whenever I had this opportunity, whether when I was in England or in my job, talking to people from America, I listen to what they have to say, and they say very interesting things, and we don't have these arguments. No one has to win an argument. So this is what I want to mention.
That's
I
very
like the way of
interesting.
thinking.
See? Say it again.
I like the way they think and they communicate. I like it very much. I have to say that. I have to give them a credit.
It's funny that you say it because I was speaking to someone the other day about the fact that Greeks can argue, well, Mediterraneans can argue with a person and then be fine with them. They're not resenting or harboring an anger or something towards the other person at the end of this discussion. And so the reason why she was very stressed because she was newly married and her husband said something and he was angry and this and frustrated and and so she's from here and he's from Greece and she told me, I don't understand this because we finished our argument and then he said, okay, are you ready for dinner? He was just ready. He was making the dinner while he was arguing with her and said, okay, are you ready? Like, come. And everything was fine. He was treating her very nicely. Everything was fine. And she was, I don't understand this. So I laughed because I told her, it's just part of who we are. We have to have our discussion. And then, we're not carrying the result of the discussion everywhere with us. The guy won the discussion, that's it. Or maybe you won the discussion and that's it. And then, you have to sit down. And it's something that I remember even when I was a child, that was the thing. Come, katsiste fai, right? Come sit down and eat something. Come eat. It's time to sit down, right? And it's funny because here we have the expression, don't go to sleep angry, right? But Greeks, we don't go to sleep angry. We go to sleep with our stomach full. We're not thinking about this argument that happened. Maybe we don't even remember it the next day. It's just a different system, Here, here the debate system is much more. It's much more talk about strategy. It's much more related to what we're going to talk about next week, which is the rhetoric. But it's very structured, and I think that's why you can appreciate it. Is because it's structured. The Greek discussion, it's not structured. It's very flowing, and you could have a million tangents, and at the end of it, there's some kind of ga or some cafe or something that's to just put everything. It's to say, finished. We have finished. Now we're social again. Okay, we're friends.
Yes.
It's to say, here we're friends. Okay. And we don't have that part here. I would love to see that part of the Greek discussion model here to say, all right, we've finished our discussion. Here, a lot of times the discussion has ended or the argument has ended and people are very angry with each other. And you try to fix it and it doesn't resolve itself. And so that's a problem in the system. So while I know you can appreciate the Western, the British and American system, I always appreciate more the Greek way because it's finished. We're leaving now. Let's go now. We're having a dinner or we're having a reception.
Yes, I appreciate the structure. I don't know what
Yes.
happens afterwards because I had never a problem with anybody, whether an American or British person. I like the way that they, how they structure the conversation. I really appreciate that, but I never had a fight with anybody.
I mean,
Uh,
also you're a very nice person and very professional. So I think that might contribute towards the fact that nothing happened. But we've seen, you can see it between friends and between now this week, for example, the UN is in session. I won't tell you what people are expecting. Hopefully everything comes out nicely. But the different modes of expression from one country to another creates sometimes some drama, which is why they have employed over 100 translators to make sure that everyone understands everyone else, But that's discussion maybe for another time.
yes.
All right. Is there anything else you want to contribute for today about the problem-solving strategy and these?
No, I think we traveled our students from ancient Middle East to back to New York, and I really enjoyed this discussion,
Yes, me
and I'm
too.
looking forward to the last one, which is going to be focused on rhetoric.
Pareja. Okay, thank you so much, Anna, and thanks everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.